Hello and welcome to the Bedroom Studios podcast, the podcast where we talk about what goes on behind the scenes in a musician's world and bridge the industry gap by bringing their stories, expertise, and advice to early career artists. Subscribe to join us for a fun chat about life as a creative person, tips and tricks for pursuing an artistic career, navigating the music industry, and more. My name is Emma Della Rosa. I am a singer-songwriter, flute player, and educator based in Toronto, and today I will be interviewing Parisa Sabet. Dr. Sabet is a composer of electroacoustic, acoustic, and film music. Her most recent interdisciplinary work, Silent, was inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement in Toronto. Blue Girl is another of her recent works, honoring the stories of women who self-immolate as a form of protest against domestic violence and forced marriage. Presented at the 2020 virtual Nuit Blanche Festival, it was recognized by Now Toronto magazine as a stellar highlight of that year's art scene. In her academic work, Dr. Sabet focuses on Persian culture and the synthesis of Western and Persian musical languages. In 2013, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada supported her study of a Persian folk dance, Dance with Sticks. Although banned in Iran, the dance is still secretly performed. Her orchestral composition, Though Still Dancing, arose from her findings. As an educator, her current research creation project, No Need to Vanish, focuses on developing, designing, and producing contemporary learning resources that are practical, accessible, and innovative for musicians from diverse personal and educational backgrounds. Her debut album, A Cup of Sins, was released on August 26, 2022, with funding from the Ontario Arts Council and the Canada Council for the Arts. The recording includes a variety of her acoustic and electroacoustic works, all of which addresses issues of human rights, persecution, oppression, violence against women, and freedom of speech. Dr. Sabet earned a Doctor of Musical Arts, a Master of Music and Composition, and a Master of Music Technology and Digital Media from the University of Toronto. Let's get started. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with listening to some of your music. I was wondering if you would like to introduce the piece from your album, A Cup of Sins.
Yes, sure. So the track that we are listening to is called Shūb-Bāzī. And it is actually inspired by a young composer in Iran, Ali Ghamsari, a very specific piece of his that I really enjoyed listening to. And that one is also written for ensemble, and I got the rhythmic pattern that he has and the form. It's some sort of a very simple ABA form. I got that idea, but then in the middle, there is this solo tar playing that I really enjoyed. So the two very much element that I got from it is that rhythmic pattern that it keeps coming. It's going like an ostinato, and that solo tar playing in the middle. And then I come up with my version, which is called Shūb-Bāzī, and it's for Pierre Ensemble. And it is recorded by the people who actually wonderful musicians who recorded my album, A Cup of Sins. Yes. Long time I haven't heard it.
Sure, you probably know I play the flute, and so I'm
Mhm.
like when I hear all the flute lines in it, I'm just like, yes, flute. Yeah.
This is actually the most abstract compositions that I've done.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of abstract. I usually most of compositions that I do, it has a story behind it. It's
Mm.
always based on it taps on a social, issue. I don't do a lot of abstract, but this is one of the rare ones that I did and I really like it.
Do you mean like abstract in terms of the what it's about?
Yeah, it's just
Mm.
music. It's just
Mhm.
pure music, nothing behind it.
It's interesting though because a lot of images come to mind
Mhm.
when I listen to it, especially from the ostinato. It's very lively
Mhm.
and it's like you're going on a journey, you know? It's like film music
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people describe it as film music. I don't know. That doesn't sound to me as film music, but
Mm.
it's thrilling to hear it.
Yeah, maybe it's the like the ostinatos.
Mhm.
A lot of people associate that with, like
Mhm.
those kind of action, suspenseful scenes in the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, does the title have a specific meaning?
Yeah, it is actually. It's Shurangis is means to be playful,
Mm,
something that is upbeat and fast that gives you a lot of energy. So that's the name of it. Yeah.
nice. So as we said before, it's the first song on your album, and definitely really want to talk about the creation and the process behind that. Um, but since it's the first song, I'm wondering, what are you hoping that the listener's first impression of the album as a whole would be when they hear this first piece?
Okay, to be honest, that was my producer's suggestion. But I agree. I think it's nice to start with something that is upbeat,
Mm-hmm.
happy, to have a, opening that is very inviting.
Yeah.
But it was her suggestions to have that one, and I totally agreed. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely a mood change when you go from the first piece to the second, like really,
Yes.
really contrasting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the way that it's kind of progressed to other pieces. Yes. Yeah, but I think it's a good inviting start.
Yeah. How long did it take you or how long does it take you in general to compose a piece from start to finish?
It depends. I think Shurangis was one of the fastest
Mm.
that I did. I was also under a pressing deadline. We were going to, I think ECM was coming, and we were kind of submitting compositions for workshop.
Mm-hmm.
That came fast, but it usually depends. But I try to spend a lot of time before starting the composition to think about what it is that I want to tell what's the story that I want to tell, do a lot of research about it, sit down and plan it, have a piece of paper and have kind of I try to know what I want to do before I start composing.
Mm.
And then usually if I'm very, very clear in that section, which usually that portion of time that we usually takes a lot, then the composition come very fast. But if I don't know and I just start, then it gets very frustrating. But
Yeah.
recently I just bought this big notebook, and I start writing down with different colors and everything. So I make sure I'm documenting every piece that I'm doing, um, and also that helps me to know what I want to do, and then comes very fast. I think the fastest was something I did in 2 weeks, a month
Mm.
ago for solo violin and viola. I think that was very fast, but I thought about it, and it was an idea that I've been thinking a lot about it that I want to do, but I didn't know for what instruments I want to do it. But I had that idea I want to do
Mm-hmm.
this composition, and then I got this call that it was a commission that they want to perform this in April, and I said yes, let's do it. I'm gonna just use these ideas that I had and compose this piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting what you were saying about how you were planning it out and drawing things, writing things down. Because I've talked to some songwriters like pop singer-songwriters, and they say a similar thing where in one of the episodes she was talking about how she would make a vision board on Pinterest for her EP and like have just a bunch of images of kind of the feel and the vibe of what she wanted. So it's kind of interesting going like from pop and then more of a classical composition. You're still using those visual images.
Yeah, it helps a lot, I think, to kind of follow where you are now, where you want to take it. It's
Yeah.
a lot of time it changes, right? Because you are doing something creative and then it kind of want to take you to a different direction, and that's okay. But for me, having that at the beginning is really helpful, even though I might start from there and then depart and go somewhere totally different. But that helps me to keep on track. And when I know what I want to do, it kind of helps a lot more with the creative process.
Oh, 100%. I have this piece of paper on my wall.
Yeah, I saw it.
It's like it's not even one piece of paper, it's a bunch of smaller papers I taped together. And so I'm just
Yeah.
like, it's nice to kind of see my ideas up there and to have it in my face a lot instead of like on my notes app, 'cause things get lost in my notes app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got a notebook, because I said, okay, I have this piece of paper here, this piece of paper there, and then maybe I should just keep it. We had this composer who came at class. I don't remember her name, but the way she was able to kind of revive her composition from 40 years ago was that I had notes, I had documented that, and then I could go back and revisit and kind of reimagine it again. And I thought, okay, that's a great idea. I need to know what was my thought process, because after a while you don't remember what you did,
Yeah.
you know? So it's nice to have some kind of notes to know where you started.
Yeah, and something you might have thought was like not a great idea when you were writing it, you go back and you're like, wow, this was actually pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah. So, kind of on the same vein, in terms of your album, when you kind of embark on this massive project, such as an album or just anything else that's is going to take a lot of time, how do you break down that big project into something that's more manageable and kind of going from big picture to the smaller pieces?
Yeah, that's a very good question. This was the first time that I did an album and I didn't know what it takes. But it was during pandemic that I started the idea and I applied for grant to, and I think that grant writing helped a lot because I had to say what I want to do, what is the plan, break it down, even though I didn't know, but and I hadn't done it before. But that grant writing helped a lot because I had to kind of be very clear for people who have no idea what I want to do, what I want to do, and kind of make it clear to me. The other thing that helped a lot, I worked with a producer, Dennis Ball, and she helped in all way through the whole thing as a consultant, as someone who would be helping me because this was the first time, and she was very supportive. And I think that's really important too when you're doing something big, have people who are supportive, who are helping you, who are on the same page, and you can plan it together and see how it kind of grows.
Very cool. And so when you're writing the grant, did you have pieces written already for the project?
So these were all the pieces that I had written over the past 10 years, and I felt they actually, I was very proud of them and happy with them, and I thought they are the ones that representing me. So these are the ones that I want to have them with a good quality recording as an album. So I didn't select all the pieces, but I chose these ones. Also, the instrumentation that I want to do and having it as the same as a cohesive album was important. But I
Yeah.
think these were the ones that I felt very proud of, very happy with the outcome.
I was actually going to ask you about kind of putting things together in a cohesive way because I found that from beginning to end, everything sort of flowed naturally into the next piece. It felt like one project, like a set of songs that it felt like it was written with the intention of them all being put together,
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way at that time. But recently I had a performance of the song cycle and the solo violin piece, and it was really interesting that the person who was going to perform it, she said, "I want to do it the same order that you did in the album, have the song cycle and the violin and the solo violin piece, because even in the album when you listen to it, it feels like there is this kind of a flow, and I want to keep it in the performance." But honestly, I didn't think about it that way. Now that I'm hearing it, or I think maybe in the next few years when I'm far ahead from it, then if I go back, I can feel it.
Yeah.
But I think I was so much into it that I didn't. I think I would say it came by, I don't want to say by chance, but by chance.
Yeah. I feel like I know stuff. I mean, I know stuff about classical music, but when I listen to it, I kind of turn my analytical brain off. I'm not like I know things about music theory, but when I listen to music, I'm not thinking about music theory and stuff like that. So I'm just kind of listening to take it in. And so I think as a listener, the instrumentation, I feel, is kind of that's what makes it feel like things are connected for people who aren't thinking about the specifics, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think the instrumentation is very important, and that's what one aspect of the album that I thought about to, um, how what pieces I'm going to choose and have that would kind of give that flow. Yeah, so I agree with that. Like I had pieces for just electroacoustic audio playback, but I didn't put it in this album. Yeah.
Do you think you'll kind of use them in a different project at some point?
Yeah, I'm thinking to have another album, but not anytime soon. In a few years, when I feel like there are few pieces that they can come together and kind of represent me and shows my growth from the first album to the next one. I'm not there yet. Maybe in 5, 6 years, but not now.
Cool.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes when I'm in a creative headspace, I tend to bounce around from project to project. And I'll write like half a song and then I'll switch and work on something else, kind of go back and forth. And so my question for you is, when you were working on this larger project, was it easier for you to stick with it and see it through from beginning to end, or did you find yourself getting disinterested or kind of sick of it halfway through?
That's a very good question. So my lifestyle, because I have a kid too, it's a little bit different. I tend to if I'm working on a project, I tend to make sure I finish that one way ahead of the deadline and then get another one. So I usually try to have a lot of space to play around if I need to, do other things. But composition, I think the best way that works for me is to finish this one, then go to the next one. Even if the deadlines are kind of aligned, but I try to finish one and then go to the next one. I can't work simultaneously, but different project, for example, I'm doing this learning resource and then I'm doing composition. I can do these too because they're very different. But compositionally, I think for me it's best if I just finish one and then go to the next. So concentrate on one of them.
When you were talking about your process and kind of mapping out your thoughts, it's probably when something's in your head and that's kind of the only thing occupying it, then it's probably easier to jump in and out of working on it with other life stuff going on.
Yes, and also, but sometimes it doesn't go anywhere, right? You're stuck with it. And then when I'm stuck, I try to not think about the music and then try to see what else in my life is interesting me these days. Is it a book? Is it going out and walking? Is it a totally different music from a different genre or a movie or whatever? And then I try to figure out what is that it interests me in that kind of a specific thing. And it's usually I find the answer for the composition there. So I try not to push the composition, but try to figure out what is it that anywhere else that it is interested me, because that's where the answer is usually.
Cool. So when you're actually sitting down to put the music together, are you more of a pencil and paper person, or do you use a digital notation or something else?
I start with, when I have the idea, I think for me is more usually, if you know what the structure is, it doesn't really matter what you pour into it, it's gonna work. So but once I have that one, then I sit on the piano, I figure out, for example, this is my melody, this is my texture, or this is my harmony, if there is anything. And then once I have that initial idea, then I go to my software and work on it, because it has that playback that I can try. But then I do, in the middle, I go back and forth. But I'm not a pen and paper, no. I need to have that playback to see and imagine myself, and the music. Yeah.
Yeah, especially for instruments that you don't play yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't know. Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So you also do a lot of arts activism things, right? So I would love to talk more about that. And so my first question is, what draws you to social justice and arts activism work?
I think with someone like me, and with the background that I'm coming, I think we're usually trying to find a way to, first of all, I think we are more sensitive to things that are happening around us, right? And we want to have a voice. And especially being somewhere that language is not your first language, it's always, I think it's easier to communicate in a different way, for example, in art form, in music. And I think I think I'm better at expressing it through music rather than talking. So that's why I choose to do that. And also because when I see something is happening, I can't be quiet about it, right? But I need to find a way how I'm going to express it, how I feel about it, or how I think about it. And also I think art is the best way to remind people about these things, and make sure that we are always aware of it, think about it, to be ready to make an action next time that's happening, hopefully faster, before we get to the point that we can't do anything. That's why I think it's the role of art, and that's why I like to keep doing it, because I want to keep reminding myself and others that we need to take an action.
How do you manage engaging with subject matter that can be triggering emotionally?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and very difficult, and especially with the women life freedom movement, it's been a lot more emotional and difficult, and I feel like I get triggered a lot, even with things that are that has never triggered me before. Yeah. I try. I've Over the years, I've learned to try to just be in the moment, feel whatever I'm feeling, and just not. Yeah, if there is something that I'm feeling, I try. I make sure that I feel it, and I let it be as much as it needs to be before I move on. I think that's the way that I try to cope with. But I think that's a very, very important responsibility. A lot of pieces that I'm doing, I always think about how far I'm pushing my audience, how far I'm pushing myself. And if I do something, can I bring them back? If I take my audience somewhere, do I have a way to bring them back to, because you don't want to leave people with an open wound, right? So that's very important. But it's always, and a lot of time I feel like I could have pushed this piece a lot further, but I decided not to, because I think it's not that I don't want, but it's because I don't know how I'm gonna, first of all, to keep myself safe, and also how can I bring my audience back. If I have that experience, if I have that kind of skill set to be able to do that, I might push it further, but for now I don't have that. So I try to go as far as I can. I feel safe that, okay, now I can bring you back.
Yeah.
But I think this is a big responsibility for, especially for people who are in this sort of, um, yeah, work as an activism in
Mhm.
art. Yeah.
Do you find that it's kind of an equal balance of creating art for yourself and creating art for your audience, or do you think that one is more important than the other?
I always try to imagine myself as an audience, sitting in an audience and
Mm,
see, what they are hearing. And that's a good question. I've never thought about that. That is it more for me or others? But the way that I think about it is that
mhm,
because I felt something and it's in my bones, so my starting point is always from my own story. But I always try to think about it more global, like how would that feel for a broader audience, how would they want to feel it or hear it?
mhm,
Like the piece that I did for the specific project for Women Life Freedom, it started with that idea. But the images that I have are images of women from all different backgrounds, with different skin color, with different hair, type, different ages. They are all engaged because I think, yes, this is coming from Iran, and I have felt that as an Iranian woman. But I think this is something that a lot of us have experienced from different backgrounds, and that's important for me to kind of make sure more people can relate to what I'm
mhm.
saying, right? But I feel when it's my story, I can say it the best way, so people can relate to it too, because it's very personal, so I can actually show or express it
Mhm.
better, rather than taking something from other culture and do it, because I've never lived that life, right? I don't have any experience.
Mhm. I like what you were saying about imagining yourself in the audience because then it's like you can create art for yourself, but then if you're imagining yourself in the audience, you're kind of it's for you, but from both perspectives,
Yeah,
right?
what do I want them to hear? What do I want to hear when I'm sitting as an audience? What do I want to hear
Yeah.
next? Yeah.
Especially if it's a more deeper kind of difficult topic and it's a personal experience. I feel like us having gone through the thing that we're writing about, we're probably the person
Hmm.
who's going to be most impacted and affected by it. So if we're in the audience, we can kind of get the sort of the most extreme reaction would be if we were sitting in the audience listening to it.
Hmm.
And so we can see like, okay, someone who would probably have a more extreme reaction would think like this. So how far do I want to go with it?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what's the most difficult thing about the work that you do with arts activism, and what's the most fulfilling part of it?
The most fulfilling part of it is when I see audience and I see it, what I did, it resonates with them.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think, the most fulfilling part of it, that they felt it, and it had that impact that I want. Um, the most difficult thing is that I feel like I need to learn a lot more in interaction with other people. So I know a lot of it is not that we don't tend to hurt people, but we don't know where they are at. So sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we say something that it hurts people. So that's the most difficult thing, that I feel like sometimes I didn't anticipate, like, that what I'm saying might hurt someone else.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult one, that I'm trying to always it's a learning process, right? I'm still learning, and I make mistakes. And
Yeah.
that's the most difficult part, that you feel like, oh, I didn't mean it, but it seems I hurt someone.
Yeah, and it's so hard to predict other people's
Yeah.
reactions to things. And then sometimes it's like
Hmm.
no matter what you say, somebody's going to be there's always
Hmm.
two perspectives to everything. So
Hmm.
it's right. I don't know. I feel like when you're pushing for any sort of social change or tackling any sort of issue involving social justice, it's like those are usually very polarizing things, and so it's like the reactions can be a bit more extreme, you know?
Yeah. And I think that the most hurtful is that, I mean, I'm okay if people tell me I'm hurt, and but I think when they don't give you the chance to fix it, that's the most
Yeah.
difficult, right?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I'm hurt and I'm out now, and I'm kind of like, okay, I understand, but is there any chance, like, let's do this again, let's work together, let's make it, work. But then when they get that chance from you, I think that's the most hurtful one. Like,
Yeah.
I sincerely didn't mean it, and I know I hurt you. Can we fix that? And then you see that opportunity is taken, and is kind of, I think for both sides, is really sad.
Yeah. Yeah, when things just kind of end abruptly.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
life, and yeah.
Yeah. But then even sometimes talking about it doesn't make things better. And
No,
sometimes it's
yeah.
better that they just, to just part somewhat amicably.
Yeah, exactly. It's their perspective too,
Yeah.
right? So they have the right to decide to be out.
Yeah. So, anyways. And do you feel that education is sort of a natural extension of advocacy? Is that something, because you do a lot of work with education and building community. How did you start doing those types of community work, education work?
That's a totally different story.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what? Because again, from the background that I'm coming, I experience educational barriers, right? So that's something that it's been always for me to be able to kind of help others who are experiencing the same thing. But it's interesting because this came, especially when I did the music technology. I saw there is a lot of opportunity that a lot of composers don't know about it, and I was kind of so excited about it, that how come you don't know this? You have to experience it. And it came at the same time that I've been trying to go to academia, become, teach there, but there has been no success. And I was kind of like, okay, if this door is closed, how can I open another door for myself and for others? Because I feel that energy inside me that I want to do this, but there is no, there's no space for me to do it. So that came from there. But I think it's really interesting because I recently found a book that I bought for my son many years ago. It says strictly no elephant. And it's about this little boy who has an elephant as a pet, and he goes to this party that it's all kids with their pets, and there is a note at the door. It says strictly no elephant, so they don't let him go in. And then he comes out and he's walking back, and he sees another girl with a skunk, and they didn't let her in too. And she's like, my pet doesn't smell. And he says it's okay, they don't know better. And it goes as they decide to have their own space, and then they have this kind of note that everyone is welcome. And they kind of, everybody with different pets, they can come in. And I feel like this is recently that registered to me, that anything that I do in education that I've been trying to do was this that I want to have this space that everyone is welcome. Even the compositions, the other, I do sometimes as an artistic director, I have like this, I plan these concerts, and that's when I realized that, okay, when it registered to me that, okay, this is what I'm trying to do, I'm more comfortable, like, if I can't get a job in academia, that's okay, because there's this space for me that I can open it for, everyone else. And maybe that's a better space for me, because it has a lot of, it doesn't have all those, it's very open, and I can create this world the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
And work with people who are thinking the same, have the same, thought of me, and we can build this together, and then help others. So that's how it's very recent. That's how it came to me, that sometimes you don't need to go the same path that everyone, or it's the straight path that everyone goes. You might go a different direction, but that's maybe even better for you. It gives you a lot more opportunity, to do what you want to do.
I really love that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I struggle a lot with that there's so many politics in the education system, and so it makes that kind of change happen very slowly.
Yeah.
And then when you create something from scratch, you can build the foundation with those ideas in mind.
Exactly, the way you want to do it. And even if it's more difficult, even it's slower, but you feel like you're going somewhere, and you find people who are thinking the same as you, and you guys like what we did, then we can collaborate, and I'm like talking with people. There are a lot of people out there who want to be part of this, who want to collaborate, and we are finding ways how we can collaborate, which is great.
Yeah. I find that for me, recently I've been trying to make a lot of connections with people, just in terms of being creative and making music, but also just building up, my friendship connections and spending time with family and things like that. And at the beginning of that journey, which was, sometime last year, it was really difficult, because you're kind of starting from, you're starting from wherever you're at, and then you're trying to build things up and work with people. And I just found it really hard, and it took a long time, and I had to be really patient with it, because I also, sometimes I get really anxious about engaging with people socially, even though I'm so extroverted and I love people. And so I was wondering if you experienced any sort of similar difficulties with collaborations and finding connections and working with people, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think for me, yeah, exactly as you said, I love being with people, but it's sometimes very difficult for me. It takes up a lot of energy. I think it's for creative people. It's all a lot of us maybe experience that it takes up a lot of energy. You need your time, you need your quiet time, downtime, be with yourself. I feel like I need a lot of time to be with myself. But also I feel like in terms of collaboration, it's usually very much with the first couple of meetings. I know if there is kind of this chemistry or not. If there is, then I know that this is going to work and we're going to work together. If not, then I know that maybe we can't collaborate or be as close as I hoped for, but we are still friends, right? But it doesn't have to be in terms of collaboration or other things. But I think you get that vibe, that if this is going to work or not.
So the last big topic I'd love to talk about with you is grant applications, because you do a lot of those, as I've seen from, you do a lot of different projects, but you're working with a lot of different organizations and funding. Do you have any tips for that? Because that could be so difficult to put together the application, but also put it together in a way that it actually gets approved for funding.
Yeah. I found it the ones that are very clear in my mind what I want to do are the ones that usually get the funding. The ones that I kind of don't know and I'm trying to write something, and those are not successful. But if I clearly know what I'm going to do, because then that's how I can articulate it, right? And that's become clear to the, assessor committee that this is what you are doing. Those are always successful. So I think the first thing is that to be very clear what you want to do, what your plan is, and then try to answer a question the best possible way that you can. And I think the rest is usually also up to who the committee is, how much they kind of, relate to your project. And it's okay, you sometimes get it, sometimes don't get it. That's totally fine. I think it's just to be brave enough, I think, to keep trying and don't get disappointed, It's just find other ways to get it done.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I think freelancing is very difficult. But it's rewarding too. Like part of it, I usually talk to people that I want to collaborate and see, would you be interested if I get the funding? And for example, I get a support letter from them, but they know that this project will happen if I get the funding.
Yeah.
That's one part of it, right? But I think you were talking about networking. That's really, I think, important, because then even if you don't know that person or you don't have that person who can collaborate with you, you have that network of people who can introduce you to other people to work with, and then you can expand it. Like I learned a lot about grants and what are available just couple of weeks ago, just because I was really wanted to get to apply for grants, and then I had to do a lot of research and also talking with people, and then they give you ideas, like if you do it this way, if you do it that way, if you kind of approach it this way. So I think talking to people about your project is important too. They give you ideas, right? Or they ask you questions that makes you think about it and make that project more, clearer in your mind, so you can articulate it better. I think it's good to share what you are doing.
That answer is a lot of.
Yeah, but, I recently I was in this business startup presentation, and it was really interesting, because sometimes we are afraid or we're worried to share what we want to do because we think other people are going to steal it from us. And what they were saying was that even with the business that you are doing, each person's journey are so different, and the way you get to it, it's so unique and different, that you will get it and you will do it. So I think that's something that no need to be worried about, that even if someone else is gonna steal it, they're gonna do it their way, you are gonna do it your way, right? That was a really good advice that I got, that is kind of each person's journey is very different. Just don't worry about it, do it.
Yeah. And I think you end up once you start, you end up figuring things out as you go along, and then every experience you have is just more knowledge for the next time you try it.
Yeah, there's this Instagram post that keeps coming always. Just make the decision, the one that who's just even if it's a wrong decision, make a decision. And that's what I'm trying to these days do. Like, it's okay even if you make a mistake, but just you need to make a decision what you want to do next.
Yeah, I think as artists, we're just in general, we're usually more intuitive towards things, towards other people and towards ourselves. And I think a lot of times there's a lot of pressure to do things a certain way and not trust what we're actually feeling or what we want to do. But then when we can kind of push all those things away and just really listen to how we feel about something or what we want to do, then like our bodies will let us know, okay, this is what I need to do, or this is the right time for this, or I'm going to wait a bit for this. And it becomes very clear.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. We need to trust ourselves more, I think.
Oh, yeah. So to close off our conversation, I was wondering, if you wanted to share about any upcoming projects that you're working on or anything coming up for you?
Yeah, I have a couple of projects in the cooking, but one is that I'm quite happy about. If it happens, we applied for a grant. It's a group of women musicians, composers, administrator, artistic directors. We came together and we want to do this project together. It's called Women Arts Resilience, I think. It's all women led, and the project is to invite women composers to propose, or it's a call for a score, so it could be propose a composition or write a composition, but it's going to be all performed by women, led by women. We are applying for grants, and it's all about this this resilience that we've all, the challenges and the resilience that all women have kind of experience, and basically create this space for all of us to share. I'm quite excited about it because I think this is the first time each of us have kind of done this separately as an individual, but coming together as a group and do it together, I think it's a totally different level that I hope if we get the grant, we do it and it becomes something that we do it more often. And we don't want it to kind of have it just for a certain type of music or genre of music. It's open to all different genres, and that's kind of something that excites me.
That is so cool. That's so exciting. I hope that they give you all the grant money to make.
Oh, thank you. I hope so too. I think it will be a great start because we want to have speakers. We want to make it something that is kind of, hopefully we start a change,
Yeah. I've gone to a couple of like artist development things where they have speakers and different sessions and stuff that's specifically geared towards women in music, and walking into those spaces, it just feels so different, and it's just so, you feel seen. It's just so wonderful. And so I think we need to be creating more of those kinds of spaces.
Supporting each other. I think that's very important.
Just like kind of seeing that, okay, like there's so many people who are like me that are doing the same thing that I am, and it just gives you a lot more confidence to keep on going and keep on working towards it.
Yeah.
So last two questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So the first one is, what resource or piece of advice would you give to your younger self? So when you were starting your journey.
Oh, if just to say, trust yourself. It's just trust what you want to do. As you said, your intuition. Trust your intuition, I think, and do the best of you can to do what you want to do. Yeah, that's the advice.
Love it. And do you have a music recommendation for our playlist?
Oh my God, listen to anything you want. I think each different piece of music gives, I think, okay, just be open. I don't have anything specific right now.
Yeah.
But be open to listening to different type of music, different genres, and see what you can get from it. But sorry, I don't have anything at the moment.
That's okay. You should all listen to your album.
Oh, okay. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This was really, really fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Bedroom Studios podcast. Don't forget to add this podcast to your playlists and to like and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify at Bedroom Studios Podcast. Also, make sure to follow our playlist of guest music recommendations and our Song Spotlight playlist, which features music that our guests have created. All will be linked in the description. Thanks again for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode.